like a hard stop? Do you need to be anywhere at 3 o'clock or anything like that, or are you happy just to chat and see how it goes?
Let's just chat, see how it goes. I probably won't be making much sense after about an hour, but we'll see where we are. It's all good.
Yeah, perfect. Easy. I'm already recording, so obviously edit the first lot out, but it always makes it a little bit easier to have a bit of a chat and go. Otherwise, you get like a 3, 2, 1 record, and it's like everyone kind of stiffens up and kind of like crickets. But like I said, mate, really super appreciative of your time. Obviously, you're pretty busy and transiting in and out of state and moving around and making up for a lot of probably lost time and stuff like that last year. So I really do appreciate sitting down with us and having a chat. But do you want to kick us off? Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, how you got here.
Yeah, sure. So Michael Puhle, run a company called Candour Coaching. So it's a developmental performance coaching for professionals is essentially what I do. There's a couple of layers to it, but that's the crux of it. Got here. It's a bit of a long-winded story, but essentially I woke up, one day in a corporate role and realized that there's more to life than just following the same pathway as everyone else. I used to be a lawyer, and so I was sitting in a room one day, in a courtroom actually, and kind of looking around and thinking, like, who out of all of these people do I want to be? There was kind of my principal, so the guy that was above me, and then there was our barrister and a QC and the judge, and I knew them all well enough. I'd been around for long enough, and I just knew a lot about who they were as people, and not one of them was the type of person that I wanted to become. So that was a bit of a trigger for me to get out of that corporate world and start chasing this one. Another side of that is, I went through some personal tragedies and all that kind of thing. And, I've got a bit of a hero story with that as well, which kind of triggered me earlier on to go down this pathway of self-development and self-growth and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on the story?
Yeah, sure. Look, so the reason I tell it in 2 different parts is because, like, I could talk about that legal scenario when I was in law and I jumped out of it, and people could, you could take that as, oh, that's why you did it. But if we go back a little bit further, a couple of years before that, I was really early on in my legal career, and I actually lost my father and my sister in the same 12-month period. So my sister was, kind of sudden and tragic, and and my father's was a mental health scenario kind of related to what happened with my sister. So within 12 months, you lose 2 family members. Really makes you wake up and kind of think about what you're doing with your life and why you're doing it, and that it's such a gift and such an opportunity that it shouldn't be wasted with half-hearted efforts. It shouldn't be wasted on things that you're doing because someone said you should, or because society says it's the right path to go, or because your parents told you it's the right thing to do, or because you got good grades and you got into this, or whatever all the bullshit reasons are. Sorry, I never asked about swearing, so I'm just going to throw it out there.
Yeah, you can, yeah.
So it just made you realize that never mind all the bullshit reasons about why you're doing what you're doing. Just live a life that you can be wholehearted about, that you can love your life with. I think that was kind of the moment where I realized that's all you could ask for. Problem being with that I was already in the legal cycle at that stage. I was already in, and I thought it was kind of where I was wanting to go. So it took me a few more years to really kind of suss it out and work out what pathway was going to be mine and what I really wanted to do. And then there was the trigger moment to just, I ended up writing kind of a handwritten resignation letter there and then in the courtroom. Yeah. And handed it to my boss, and he laughed and said, give me a proper one. So I did that, and I got out there pretty much that day.
Did you go into law kind of based on I guess the latter or the former of what you just said? Was it more got good marks, got into it, figured it'd be a good career and kind of go with the flow? Or did you get into law with kind of more, it's altruistic intentions of being able to make a difference and that sort of stuff as well?
Yeah, it was definitely the second option, the altruistic stuff, because, and I'd actually, looking forward, not within the next decade, but I plan quite a long way ahead, like I would in my role. But at some stage in the future, I expect that I will use it again. So I originally got into law to get into politics, to make changes at a policy level, to make changes at a government level, as opposed to to be a lawyer. So yeah, it was for greater reasons. Um, I think, you know, we all come to different crossroads at different points in our life to try and work out what that is. And I will reuse it at some stage, but what I was going through at that point and what most people go through in a legal career definitely wasn't for me.
Yeah. Politics, is that still potentially, is that part of the greater plan, the longer term
Yeah,
plan?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I figure if I can impact all, you know, lives at the moment, I say this semi with, you know, tongue in cheek, but impact as many lives at the moment, you know, get a better understanding of people and what they're doing and what they really want. One of my long-term goals would not only be for Australia to be a place of, you know, of a fair go, we in quotes, but also of an ambitious go, of
Yeah.
people just stepping out a little bit further outside their comfort zone. I think a lot of what we take for granted here, we really, you know, we call ourselves the lucky country. I don't know if you know the origins of it, but it was actually an article that was taking the piss, saying that we don't know what we've got. We don't realize how lucky we are. It wasn't someone saying, "I live in Australia, I'm lucky." It was someone saying, "Yeah, you guys have you know, landed on your feet," kind of scenario. Whereas I'd like to push us to go a little bit further and start branching out and start being ambitious and start being a little bit more in control of what we're doing as a country. That's very very young, very immature thoughts at the moment. I haven't really processed them properly, but yes, at some stage I'll go down that path.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's interesting to see, and I guess, you know, sharing that kind of coming from corporate as well, when you have that moment of self-awareness, whatever that kind of penny drop moment is, where you start looking around and looking around at the things around you and feeling like you're different to what you see, or what you feel that the direction that you're moving is not necessarily one that you want to go. What do you think it is that that either sparks that, or like, I'm always fascinated by the fact that corporate is still almost as popular as it is, and maybe COVID is starting to potentially change that a little bit as well, and giving more of a rise to a freelance or like a contractor scenario where people aren't necessarily just going to school to go to university to get the corporate job to work their way up the career ladder. But is there something that you see, I guess, with your clients that tends to spark that, oh, there's got to be more than this? Or is it just a period of time kind of working the rat race that people are like, I can't do it anymore?
I think it's probably innate in certain people to want to get out, to want to be a little bit more free. Because if you look at it, you know, and you use the word rat race, a lot of the corporate world is that. It is that you're being conditioned to go and do something so that you can make a life for someone else, you know, or make money for a company that keeps the world turning, that, you know, keeps food on the table, that does all these things. And yet you can do all of those things without going down the corporate route. So I think it's probably just innate in people that want to jump out, or you know, people kind of, from what I've seen, people get themselves nice and comfortable. You know, they're comfy in a role, they're comfy in the way that they're going about it. They're told that it's the right, you know, they're told, they're presented, we're sold. I don't know if, you know, what your history was like, but at every step of the way for me, I was sold this, you know, idea of following that path towards a corporate journey, and that's the way you want to go. You know, or even all the TV shows are all about the guys in the, you know, in the suits on the top floor, or all the you know, all the people that I thought I wanted to be went down that way. So
Yeah, that was definitely, I went to a private school, and the expectation was, of course, you'd go to university, right? Like
yeah,
there was no other option. You were going to university to
it's
get
not
a degree, and then off you go. And yeah.
yeah,
So,
it's not even a question. It's not even a question. And for most people, I don't think it's a period of time they spend in it. And I'm kind of reflecting on clients, and I'll try and keep it all as open as I can for the listeners. But it's not a specific time. It's more, you just get to a point and you realize that something triggers you to realize that there's more to it. And whether that means there's more to it in what you're doing and you just change your ways a little bit, or whether that means that, you know, you need to completely divert path, you know, put a stop in it here and pull the pin and jump, or, you know, pull the tag and jump out of the plane. But, you know, that's a choice for others. But I think it's more of a trigger that gets people, as opposed to like a certain amount of time they're in that world and then wanting to jump out.
yeah.
I like it nowadays. I don't know whether you've got any people coming through like that school system scenario, but there seems to be more and more eye-opening events along the way to make people realize that they can do things. It's just a shame that the people that are trying to teach it don't actually know haven't actually experienced it. You know, it's we'll get there. I think we'll get there. We'll get people to think more freely, I suppose, in that education process soon.
I think that generally, like what we're starting to see in terms of the education system at the moment, is super interesting with universities raising fees for things like arts and commerce and stuff like that as well, to try to divert people around or away from, you know, the almost what we've seen as like the staple degrees, because it's like how many lawyers do we need? How many accountants do we need? Like there's such massive oversupply, right?
Yeah.
And I know heaps of friends of mine with CAs are just like, there's so much competition for every job, and it's like half of them feel like you get treated like shit, but if you don't do it, there's 3 people that will, you know.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of just work the job to work the job because maybe it affords me a lifestyle that I enjoy living outside of work, right? That kind of living for the weekend sort of mentality, which is hard to watch. Like it's hard to be a part of, but it's also like hard to watch as well once you've made the leap, I think.
Yeah. People don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
Then like you've made the leap, or you're doing your own thing, so you get to see all that benefits from it. And then on the flip side, and we're talking about this when you first answered, and I was talking about some of the travel that I'm doing. Some people don't want all the stresses that come with this. Some people don't want the stresses of running their own life. They want someone to tell them what to do. They want to know that they can go to work from 9 to 5, do that, and then have the rest of the time to themselves. And they don't want the additional problems that come. Everyone has problems even without that scenario, but they don't want that additional, as I say, pressure or responsibility.
I think the security issue is an interesting one, again, given maybe the last 12 months too, right? Where it kind of demonstrated that you can play it safe the whole way, and then out of nowhere comes a pandemic and you still get made, obsolete or redundant or whatever.
If you're in the corporate world and you didn't already know that, you haven't been paying attention. how many companies get taken, or how many people lose their jobs for no reason? Like they think, and people can be so loyal to a company that will not even think a second thought after getting rid of you. I've got a couple of people in my friendship circle that are like this, that have been in their roles for 10 years. It bewilders me. I've had 10 roles in that time, but they've been in their role for 10 years, and we're talking about them living a better life because they're talking to me about it. They know that's what I do. They're just like they're just having the conversation, and we talk about it, and then they change nothing, and then they get opportunity with like COVID and redundancy packages are around. You're like, man, take it. Like you've got long service leave, you've got a redundancy opportunity here. Take it. Let's find you what you want to do. Oh no, I can't. I've got this. I wouldn't want to let the team down. You're like, we're talking about a corporation that doesn't even know you exist. Mm-hmm. You're not the top man. So, or maybe the C-suite level, maybe the level below them, but anywhere else, like they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people just get a little bit lost in that as well.
So something you just said there in terms of they're talking to you to create a better life. Can you elaborate on like what you mean specifically by that?
Well, in that scenario, people know that what I was talking about there is friends who know that my job is to help people find a clearer purpose, create structured goals they actually want to achieve, and then go and get it. That's kind of like a real foundations level of what we do. On the more day to day, I do more high performance stuff. So, okay, well, I've got a group that's already worked that out. And how do we do like the execution? How do we do the motivation? How do we do the high performance? How do we do finding flow? How do we do all those kind of things in executing what they've already realized? But on a foundations level, I help people find a purpose and help them create goals to get there. Now, that's why I might have that. And then what I'm talking about there is like, after a couple of beers, we're sitting at the pub and my mate leans over and he's like, I hate my job. What can I do about it? Like, that's what I'm saying there.
Yeah. I am interested, like I said before, like I am interested in that whole introspective look to find clarity. I think most people, when they set goals, again, like you said, with the reason that maybe they're in the industry they're in, they're setting the goals that they feel like they should set, or like, this is kind of what everyone around me is working towards, and I should probably be working towards the same thing. I think it's more difficult, and you're probably more of an expert on this than I am, but I think it actually is quite difficult to take that time to sit down and be like, well, what actually do I want, rather than like, oh, what do I think I should want, right? And kind of getting.
Why do you think it's difficult? Because I'll ask the question back. Like, Why would you say it's a difficult thing to do that?
Because I think it is confronting. It's a confronting process and question to ask yourself. Have I been working the last 15 years to go in a direction that I don't want to go in? And what does that mean in terms of the next 15 years? And am I too far down the river to change direction? Right?
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Look, my favorite question, and this has been my favorite question for a good 10 years, but my favorite question is to ask someone what they want. I like to ask it because I like to see like the squirm that they get when I really push them. Because you ask most people, and I dare your listeners, or I challenge your listeners and yourself to ask this of friends and or people that you know in the next day or so. Just say, what do you want? Because you'll always get the immediate response of, to lose 5 kilos or to hit a 100 kilo snatch, or to some people might say, I want to live a happy life. Like maybe they'll go a little bit broader, but in general, they'll never give you something specific about, and it'll never be what they truly want. Like that deeper answer of what do you want with your life? Why are you here? What would your best life look like at the end of it? Like, what do you want? And even to the point of being in a conversation with someone, asking them what they want from you. Most people are, pit-pattering around the edges of a conversation when really they should just pull it up, grow some balls and just say what they want. So that's one of my favorite questions, and for 2 reasons. One, because it actually gets people to start thinking about what they want for their life, and 2, because it's an uncomfortable scenario. Now, the reason I asked you like what's difficult about searching for what you want or analyzing what you want or asking yourself a question is because there's nothing difficult about it. It's not like it is. It's a simple thing to just stop and start thinking, well, what do I want? But what it's hard is the scare factor that you mentioned. What if I've been doing the wrong thing for so long? Or, what if I can't find what I want? What if I go searching for it and I'm never going to find it? I'm going to be in this lost loop of not knowing who I am for the rest of my life. Like there's all these fear that's associated with it. And I think we find that's the in quotes, difficult part. It's a simple thing to do, but yes, it is painful, it is hard, and it's long, and it might bring things up, but it's actually a simple question to ask yourself.
Simple but not easy.
Exactly. Love that.
You can have that one, mate. It's not mine.
Yeah, it's probably in one of my captions somewhere back in the last couple of years for sure.
I think it is hard, and I think like a lot of that part of being difficult is that trying to be or wanting to be more vulnerable, but again, being prepared to accept the things that come with that, right? And I think that is a difficult, especially the older we get and the further down the path we get, and maybe the more responsibilities we have or obligations we have as well, changing course and changing direction. I think there's a lot of people out there that feel it's, they're over 30, it's too late, right? Do you think that?
Sure.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think that
kind of just
there may be, but for me, my response to that is, well, what better time to be doing it than then? And it's like investment. There's no perfect time, but the best time's right now. Like, I've had clients who were 56-year-old females, mums, kids were out of the house who were just unhappy and wanting to work out, okay, how do I find myself again? I've had clients who were the 21, 22 kind of age, and they just wanted a bit of clarity on what they're looking for and what they want to find. So I suppose my answer to you is get the help. Sure, you may feel like you're 30 something and you've got all these responsibilities and you've got kids and you've got things to pay for and you're already on the pathway and you're already doing it. So just suck it up and get it done. But I'm yet to see a scenario where you can't have a better life by finding out what it is you truly want, especially when you do it with someone that can help and knows what they're doing and has done it before and has seen it. You don't, in your world, you don't try and lose weight without going to see someone that can talk about the right macros. You don't try and lose weight you don't go see a nutritionist. You don't try and get better and fitter and faster and stronger without going and seeing someone that can write a program to help you do that. All those things are hard if you try and do it by yourself.
Yeah,
as is searching for your purpose. Like if we've been around for millennia, everyone wants to know what the meaning of life is. I would suggest that, it's got something to do with trying to find your purpose of being here. So that's probably the hardest question to ask. Get some help.
Yeah. I think to anyone listening as well, statistically speaking, if you are, early 30s, you're actually only a third of the way through your life. So 2/3 of your existence to just like slowly die is a fucking long time.
Oh, incredibly long. And I mean, I love those memes that get around on the socials that show like, Ray Kroc was 50 odd when he started McDonald's, and Oprah was whatever when he did this. So this reminds you, you've still got time. But I'll give a personal example of that. I had a mentor who was working for a non-for-profit in India until he was like 31, 32. And then met his now wife, and realized, after meeting her, weren't married at the time, but after meeting her, was like, okay, well, I got to do something. I got to do something. I got to make some money. I got to make something of myself. I've got to make something of life for her. We've got to do this together and grow together. And he realized he had two choices. He could either become a taxi driver and probably earn a pretty good living, move back to the States and do it there and follow that path, or he could jump down an entrepreneurial track and chase his dreams and really go after it and see what happens. Now he went down the entrepreneurial track and had some really big wins, and won some awards and all that kind of thing. But he's now 72, 73, and still giving back more than most 30-year-olds that I know. So like, there's an example of, he didn't start that track until he was 32, and he made some really big wins. Similarly, he's now well past retirement age, and instead of all those people that, and I'm categorizing quite strongly here, but instead of all those people that went the 9-to-5 route, that retire at 65 and live off the pension and get all their free time then with 20 years left in their life, he's 10 years into that venture and still giving back and still doing things and still operating. So yeah, you're right. 30 is only a third, if not less, of your way through, especially by the time you and I get up to...
By the time we're 60, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So by the time we get to 70 or 80, I would not be surprised if there wasn't a whole range of medical marvels that take us well past 100. So it's never too late. Get some help.
Yeah. I guess for me, the tip-off point was like, I'm already living my worst nightmare. So like, if shit doesn't work out, I just come back exactly where I am anyway, right?
Yep. It's not going to get worse than this. I may as well just have a crack.
Yeah. That whole like that goal setting, that finding clarity, it's almost venturing, I guess, as things like mindfulness and stuff like that become a little bit more mainstream as well. It's almost in danger of, do you think, becoming like buzzwordy? Like, there seems to be a lot of almost, not people trying to capitalize on it, but it's almost in danger of being commercialized in a sense. Does that make, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Look, I see the world, I'm quite optimistic about many things. So my response to that is that people have been doing this for a long time. It's just that nowadays, with technology and with the advances that we have, we all see it a lot more often. Mm-hmm. I remember when I first went down this pathway, one of my uncles, started telling me, he's like, oh, I remember, that was the thing in the 80s. I don't think it's around anymore. Like, and he was talking about, 80s coaches and power suits and stuff. And like, that was you've missed the boat there, lad, 30 years later. I'm like, so I don't know if I agree that it's like trying to be capitalized now. It's just more so, any bloke with a computer can run an ad that says that they can help you. So, that's the kind, I think that's probably more to the point. The technology just makes it more abundant.
Yeah. Because you went as well after you finished, or probably after you finished or went and did your master's in coaching psychology, right?
Yeah. So I studied at Sydney Uni for a little while and I didn't even know this at the time, but they've been running a coaching psychology course there for 20 years. Yeah. Like, so yeah, this is not new there, not new to them.
Since the 80s, the power suits.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Since like back in the 90s, and I went there, and these were people that I'd read like their quotes in books before, but not realized that they're right here in Sydney. So went and did some extra study on that. Just on a side note, I wish I hadn't, because I don't actually think you need to go to university to learn. We were talking about it earlier, it popped into my head, and I didn't bring it up, but that aspect of, I think you were talking about, you went to a private school, so it was never an option not to go to uni. Mm-hmm. I think uni, and I reckon it was probably Elon Musk that said it, but like, it is literally just a place to make sure you can do your chores, and then we'll give you a certificate at the end. like it can get you in the door to certain things, but I didn't learn anything there that I couldn't have learned reading a book or, researching papers or reading a journal article myself.
Well, you pay for credentials, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And even then people like, with a master's in coaching psych, a lot of people don't even know it's around. So it helps, but it's not like a CA is what I was trying to say.
Yeah. I think that's you'd be a big Naval Ravikant fan, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's his thing too, is like education is super expensive, but learning is super cheap, right?
Yeah, I love that stuff, and I love the following of it, and I love the way that he brings it to the world as well. If you really want to know something, it's out there. You can find it.
Yeah. I've definitely found in the last 2-3 years making more of a conscious effort just to read, like not specifically anything, but a bit of everything here, there, and just kind of when I say read, I mean Audible. And I think the best thing I love about Audible is you read a book and then it throws up some similar suggestions and you kind of rabbit hole a little bit more. You go through Dan Coyle and Talent Code and you end up in Renee Brown and you keep going down that sort of path. And definitely feel there's so much really good, useful information that is so freely available. That I almost find I think I've learned more that's been applicable to what I do in my role, from that than I ever would have learned at uni, going to lectures and sleeping through tutes and stuff like that. So
yeah. And there is a place for it, but I will say, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the time the lecturers are only 1 year ahead of 1 year ahead of you. They've gone and learned something so they can teach you, as opposed to go on. Yeah, just need to be one step ahead. As opposed to going and I learn from practicing. I learn from action. I learn from doing. I think that's for me. That's the best way of going out and failing and finding out why I stuffed up and correcting it.
Yeah, I think as a coach too, I think you get to the point where you realize it's not necessarily your role to have all the answers. It's just your role to facilitate information and allow people to make their own decisions through the information that you provided. And I think over time, you tend to see, I know even especially for my own practice, if I look back to how we were coaching 5 years ago, our whole programs, every time we work with a client, essentially it gets rewritten in some form. But you've got to get through that 5 years, right, to get to a point where you know what works and you've had 300, 400 kind of test subjects to run it through, Well,
there's a difference between, so this is what people don't realize with coaching as well. And it really, it grinds my gears a bit, but if you're applying the same thing to someone, you're actually teaching a course. If you are coaching, that is a program. You are adapting a program, adapting a series to that person. Now, the answer to every question that you ever get from a possible client or someone that you're coaching should be, the first 2 words back to them should be, it depends. You should be it depends. And then going individualized or, personalized to whatever it is in their situation at their time right then. That's coaching. If you're giving the same response to someone that you gave to someone else a week earlier, you are just a teacher teaching a course, which is fine, which is all good. But but don't sell yourself as a coach, because that's not what you're doing. Yes, a lot of the time the same answers will be given, but you still need that stop moment of, is this actually the right thing for this person, for this client right now, and then delivering. And what you were saying before about coaches about facilitating, it's called, I don't know if you've seen it, it's called the ask tell matrix. Pretty simple matrix, but you've got ask why, tell how. Coaches are it should be about asking why more often than telling how, and then you kind of sit in that zone, which allows people to find their own way through, and you just facilitate that.
I mean, that's essentially cognitive behavioral therapy, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's that. If you don't have a little bit of CBT in your repertoire, you probably haven't done much coaching.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, that must be something else that super grinds your gears too, right? I guess how would you describe yourself as a high performance coach, right? If you had a business card and a little subtitle under your name, is that what you put?
Yeah. I mean, I go with developmental performance, but same.
Yeah. And to see, I guess, like on Instagram, like I know it does my head in with like wannabe nutrition coaches where they're selling a particular detox tea or a templated meal plan, whatever it is. And there's just so much of that shit that gets so much traction at the moment. You do that just as much as we do, surely.
Yeah, it's the same thing in my world as in others. Yeah, you can either let it get to you, or you can, just try and be better. And one of my main things is just be better.
Yeah,
and
cool.
It's not like that those people can't help, right? It's not like that they can't help. It's just that they're more often, they're more likely to do damage than someone who's got a little bit more experience or backing. That's probably the main thing I'd say. A lot of their stuff may have helped. I mean, I'm sure they believe in it.
Well, I think that's part of the frustrating process too, right? Is when you start to work with clients who have come off like being broken by some of these like other individuals or programs or whatever it is, courses. It's like, how do we stem the flow of this damage to get to these people before they're at this breaking point, right?
Yeah. I mean, and definitely in my world. So you asked about high performance earlier, and for some clients, I will say, yeah, I'm a high performance coach. But majority of the time, I go with that developmental performance, because the developmental part's about well-being, and I don't actually believe you can get to high performance unless you've got the well-being structures in place. So that's why I have that part first, that developmental part, because it is about personal development. It is about well-being, and if we get those foundations right, then you can proceed. Now, I say that because majority of the time, you'll see the equivalent of your skinny tea coaches, in my world, will do damage. And you need, you can't go through a master's program without having a mental health toolkit, right? You need to know who the psychs are in your area. You need to know some of the warning signs for situations of mental health and all those things, just like you guys would for injuries. I wouldn't be surprised if it was smart for you guys to have that. Say that again, sorry?
Like disordered eating practices and stuff like that. Yeah.
You've got those. You got to have those triggers and those alarm bells known. Now, if I just grab a computer, set up a course, call myself a coach, you never know the damage you're going to do. I remember sitting on, my fiance when she wasn't my fiance a few years ago, she was doing one of these courses. She's doing it for free. She's in PR. She was like, "Come do the course, and you might be able to do PR for me." And I just happened to overhear. Well, one, you shouldn't really be overhearing other people tell their stories if you're not in the course. But anyway, happened to overhear a group call.
Yeah.
And this girl was telling a pretty, like similar to what's going on in Parliament at the moment, with that liberal backbencher scenario, right?
Yeah.
And she's telling a pretty full-on story, and everyone in the course is getting around her, great, but not in an appropriate mental health medical way.
Yeah.
And it was a really scary moment. I had to mute the computer for my partner, and kind of said that needs be taken care of. And she's like, yeah, I've already direct messaged the course runner, who wasn't doing anything about it. Like, we're going down a slippery slope here, and this is not okay to be sharing this information. And one, it's not okay for none of you to be qualified in having this conversation with this person. They went that way. So yeah, it's out there. It happens. Let's hope that in the future it'll be a bit more regulated.
Do you think part of that real like well-being comes from, like we sort of said before, like being aware of what you're trying to work towards, what your purpose is, like that kind of clarity, and then allowing decisions to be made from that point so that your actions do align with the kind of person you want to be or what you feel like you want to achieve, like that first step?
Yeah, yes, I do. Yeah. In short, the foundations things is working out your values, working out where you want to go. Otherwise, it's not well-being. It's just action. It's just action.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. I agree.
Yeah. There's a hierarchical structure to it, right? There's you really want to get some really base foundations to what it is that you're trying to do with your life and why you do it. Now, I use the like a values, goals, hierarchical structure, working out that main purpose by a set of values, by a set of words that indicate to you what the kind of person, the kind of attributes, the kind of characteristics you want in what you do and how you go about it, and using those to make decisions on what that person achieves.
Yeah. So someone's listening to this and they're like, all right, I got to get my shit together and figure out what's really important to me. Is there like, do you have a, like, this is how you should go about doing that, or this is where you would start in it? Or is this giving away the secret sauce of the 8-week program?
Nah, the one thing that I've come to learn, my friend, is that you could give away every single secret that you have. No one, it doesn't mean a thing because no one's going to take action.
Yeah.
Like I could tell you the secret right now to world domination, and it doesn't really matter because you're going to still need someone to help you do it. You're going to still need someone to get you to take the action to go and do it. So yeah, I use a few things. I do have an online course. It's called the 8-Week Life Hack, and I distinguish it is a course, not not a program. It's a course to help you to answer those questions of what my purpose is and to create some goals to help you going about getting it. Yes, there's a few different ways. I won't go through all of them now, but a simple one for me is to remember that it's not about what you want, it's about who you want to be. So when it comes to values, when it comes to working out those core, those innate attributes of yours that you want to rely upon, it's not about it's not about rich, it's not about money, it's not about fitness, it's not about all those things that you want to achieve. It's about who you want to become and who you can be today that helps you get there. So if you were to say, you want to be rich, it's probably not about that. It's probably more about, I want to be confident and I want freedom. So it's more, and that's who you can be today. You can be confident and be free in your mannerisms today. And if you do that, it actually works in reverse to bring about what you want in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. So
sorry, with the screen, you can't see my arms and hands and doing stuff. But
I like that. I like that a lot. I think that's generally people overestimate what's achievable in a short period of time and underestimate what's achievable like long term, right? And I think that is a huge part of even, regardless of what you go with, whether it is in business or with your family or with your health, like it's those kind of everyday small decisions. If they're kind of all aligning in the right direction, like eventually they all add up. It's not this big monumental decision that people are on the lookout for, right? It's incredibly hard to say that you're working to be kinder if you like lose your shit every time someone cuts you off in traffic, right?
Well, you're not.
Yeah.
You're not working to be kinder. It's obviously not the attribute you want because you're yelling at people in traffic.
Yeah.
Or something else. There's either something chemically and deeper going wrong, or it's not actually an attribute of yours. You're just saying it because you think you want to be kinder. Yeah, I find that with the long-term stuff as well, is that when people create a goal that they want to achieve, that thing in the future, question for you, how many times have you achieved a goal and then kind of woken up the next morning like, okay, well, what's next? Semi-unfulfilled by that goal.
Yeah, right. So it's kind of like that's why happiness isn't a destination, right? It's a journey because the posts always move. We want your first muscle up, and then as soon as you get it, it's like, oh, now I want 5 or 10 or 15.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you keep
absolutely.
Yeah.
And in that moment, in that happiness being the journey, that's where the key, the key is the journey. And your values or your characteristics, your attributes, those things that I'm talking about, those things that you want to try and work out who you want to be, is the journey. It's being that person every day. Like whether you want 1 muscle up or 10 muscle ups, you still need to be, maybe the person who's got the right weight to achieve those things, or the person that's done enough, upper body strength to achieve those things, or the person with a tight enough core. Like whatever the base foundations are of getting a muscle up. You do that every single day, regardless of whether you're getting a muscle up or regardless of whether you're getting 10. So similarly with old mate driving who wants to be kinder, but is yelling at everyone from his car, like the result, the goal of being kinder in the future has got nothing to do with the fact that someone just cut you off and you yelled at them. Stop it. That's not like who you want to be today. Is the journey. That's right now. That's happiness. Be kinder. Dismiss it. Laugh it off.
Do you see how if people as they go along, do the goals change? Do you think like as people kind of work more and more to align to become?
All the time. Yeah. The goals that people come to me, they want I want to get a promotion at work. I've had that one before quite a few times. I want to get a promotion at work. I want to be more efficient at work. Can you help me with that? Sure. Let's do some foundation work first, though. That's the application process. I want to know that you know your values and that you know what your life to look like. We do that, and within 4 weeks, actually, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. Or actually, I want to be in this role at a different place. You know, they change all the time, but so do our values.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you have a list of values, you've probably got maybe, let's say, 5 to 7. Yeah, not many people in my experience have more than that, but there's no quota. Like there's no top fill. But over time, they're going to change as well, right? Like when you're younger, you might be highly ambitious. When you're older, you might be more of a provider because you've got a family and had kids or whatever the case is. Like it's an organic process, and they should be reviewed often. You won't see the main core ones, I wouldn't have thought, because in my experience, they've been developed over those influential years growing up, and what those things that really impacted you kind of help you develop those ones in the beginning. But it's still an organic process. They still chop and change. You're still going to have trigger moments like you spoke about before, and that I've had, that are going to change you to think, okay, well, I need to do that more. You know, prior to my sister and father passing on, I never really gave a whole lot of thought about my friends. Like, yes, I had good friends, and yes, I was a good friend, and yes, I love my collection of friends. But afterwards, and after that happened, after thinking about it, that friends and family became my number one priority. Period. Like to the point of my own detriment. You know, to the point of if it was something that I could go and help a friend or family with, or help my business with, I'd go and help the friends and family. Yeah, so that changed at that moment. And then as we go into the future, I've got mentioned a couple of times the fiance now will be married in November. Well, the expectation will be there'll be kids within a couple of years. Friends and family aren't going to be the priority anymore. Well, specifically family will, but like everyone will take a back seat to those people, those immediate people that are why I'm here. So it'll change again. The values and the attributes I want to be will change again.
Yeah. I think the strongest part that we kind of alluded to before is when you know what your values are and you have an understanding essentially of their rank, right? Ranking them in order of importance. It makes every follow-on decision from that point super easy. Because if you know your family is number one priority and something comes up to take time away or to pull you aside from that, the decision not to do that, it becomes quite easy, right?
Yeah. Being able to get to a fork in the road when you've got your values, like, and they're strong and they're pillars of who you are wanting to be. You just simply reflect on them. It makes a decision of that next job promotion, or maybe it's moving. Maybe there's an opportunity to move. That's a bit of a thing at the moment with COVID, people getting out of the cities. You're doing that, you might pull that trigger because you think, oh, it's better for the rest of the family. We might as well get some fresh air. But if one of your values is energy, then maybe the city provides more energy than the country, and you got to think about that. If you have those things, you can make those decisions much easier than just doing it because you think that's the way it should go.
I had this conversation. I'll ask you a hypothetical question. Well, it's not really hypothetical, I guess, but I had this chat with Brett Paperny, who's a mindset coach in Canada, and the question was basically, do you think most people know who they are deep down? And I'm interested to hear your take on this, because my initial thoughts were, I think that most people are kind of just being swept along for a greater part of their life. And his reaction was, he thinks even the people that are just being swept along, they know they're just allowing themselves to be swept along. So deep down, they do know. Do you have an opinion one way or another on that?
So even before you gave your answer, just when you're asking the question, sorry, mate, we're just getting a fire engine come past. 1 second.
Yeah.
So even when you just asked that question, you didn't give me the answers that Brett and yourself had. My answer was, yeah, I think everyone does know.
Okay.
Like it's just a matter of, have you done the work? Have you uncovered it? And I highlight that word uncover, because for me, it's not about so finding your purposes might be something different, but it's not about finding your values. In my opinion, you've already got them. So it's actually about uncovering them. It's actually about peeling the layers back to that deeper sense of who you are and uncovering those core values. And yes, I think everyone knows what they are. They just have to do the work to find them. Everyone's got a gut feeling. Everyone's got a gut check. Don't get me wrong. There may be one or two psychological cases that don't, but in general, even those people that working for the weekend, hate my job, blah blah blah, they know who they are. Yeah. They've just decided not to listen to it and not to do the hard work to follow it.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that the 9 to 5 is the wrong thing. I'm not trying to say that at all. And that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions that I have to deal with when people come to me for if they want to try and get me on as a coach, a lot of the time it's because they think I'll say to them, quit your job and let's start a startup and you can be the next, tech entrepreneur. Like, it's not. And 8 out of 10 of the times that person actually stays in a similar industry. It's just about uncovering a little bit more deeper about who they are and finding them a way to live the life they want to live with the skills and scenarios that they have. And just putting a bit of a belief stop against all the things that we're told we have to do.
Do you think people come to you looking for permission though to make that move some of the time?
Not specifically permission, but I think a lot of the time people probably already made the decision and now they're looking for a way to execute it. Yeah. It's kind of the same answer, but it's not like they weren't going to do it, but it's more of a, how do I do it in a way that is it the right thing and let's go.
Yeah. It's interesting. Awesome.
I'll give you, so you were asking about secrets and stuff before, but so I'll give you just one example of a way to find out, or to at least begin the brainstorming activity of finding out your values. And I call it an admiration hunt. So essentially we're going to start looking around us to find out what we admire in other people. So it's a pretty simple process, and I'll just give you the broad strokes questions. But to begin with, I'd make a list of between 7 and 10 people that I admire. Now, those people can be someone you know. A lot of people obviously might select parents or siblings or grandparents or whatnot. People you don't know is fine as well, like famous people, historical people, people alive or people of the past, all those kind of things. Even fictional people. So one of my favorite ones is a lot of men like Batman, right? That idea of human but still like a superhero, like to a point. So you can select fictional people as well. So people you know, people you don't know, famous people, fictional people, just 7 to 10 people that you admire. And then take that list and find 3 or 4 character traits of theirs that you admire about them. Yeah. So then by that point, you've got, let's say you do 7, you've got 28 character traits to choose from. And then next to those 28 character traits, start deciding whether or not they're character traits that you would want to adopt. Are they things that you would want to bring into your world? Are they the type of person that you want to be? If someone said that you were that, would you be proud? Would that be okay with you? And, just make a few notes on yes or no or why or how it makes you feel. So then suddenly you've got 28 different character traits or 28 different possible values of yours or attributes of yours that you could adopt and reasons why you would or would not adopt them. So that's a pretty good place to start. You can do that. By the end of that stage, you probably have, maybe you have 3/4 of that, somewhere around 20, 21 different options.
Yeah. It sounds a little bit like, I think Brene Brown calls it like her square squad. So you basically write down the 5 people whose like opinion of you means the most to you and ask them like what what your character traits are that they most admire about you, or something similar to that. And basically if the fact that you're getting from those people are not traits necessarily that you would want yourself to have or think that you have, it's kind of like shows a discrepancy between who you think you are and what your actions actually tell others about who you are. So, because I think the admiration, like no one thinks they're a dickhead, right? Like no one thinks they're like super arrogant, like know it all. Like no one actually thinks that about themselves, right?
Yep.
But there's obviously
of course not. Well, I mean, maybe there'd be people out there that would like that. If I was a high performing sports person, I probably wouldn't mind having that attribute on myself. Like it actually makes you. I don't know if you saw the Jordan documentary that came out last year, but I've obviously helped him for however many years he was at the top of the game. But with the admiration hunt is it's about who you want to be as opposed to who you think you are. What I was getting at.
Yeah, I like that. What are you reading at the moment, mate? Got a couple of resources for us, or not even currently reading, but anything that you've read previously that you find you reflect on a lot or go back to a lot, or anything that's kind of stuck with you?
Yeah, so currently reading, my bedside reading is Aurelius's Meditations, Marcus Aurelius's Meditations.
Mm-hmm.
Read it before, just felt like it's good evening reading. I don't know if anyone else experienced this in the last couple of weeks, but my sleep's been terrible. So just went back to a book that I knew, and it's got those, like, it's short, sharp paragraphs, so you can kind of put it down quickly if you don't get too caught up in in reading an entire book. Ones that I refer to, I mean, I go to Culture Code. 7 Habits is one of my favorites as well, because it's written so academically. Probably a book that kind of really helped at the beginning of my journey, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend it now that with everything that I know, but like, it really helped me early on, it's called Change Your Life in 7 Days by Paul McKenna. Now, Paul McKenna's the British NLP guy. He's pretty famous NLP practitioner out of the UK. A lot of these things I kind of not go against, but I kind of know a little bit more in depth now and don't really follow it so much. But when I first started the journey, so like a good 20 years ago, maybe 18 years ago, that was a book that really quite impacted. Changed Life in 7 Days. It's got like a hypnosis CD with it. It's got 7 chapters, one for each day of the week, and you kind of find your way through. And then my favorite, well, not favorite, but when I was 16, I went to my first self-help seminar style kind of conference, and it was a Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, back in 2001. So that'd be a place to go as well. I love his stuff. It was the first book that kind of started opening my mind to the fact that the way we're taught isn't the only way to see the world, right? And he's becoming big now with the with the fiat currencies and the bitcoins and all that kind of stuff. All his thought processes are cool to know and cool to watch. At least allows you to be able to talk at a at a dinner over wine when people start bringing this stuff up.
His big thing about like buying a house is like not buying an asset.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Easy.
Well, and it makes his arguments make sense, right? Like, he's got good rhetoric. He's not just sprouting stuff. He's said it. He's done some stuff. It's not an asset if it means that you have to spend money on it every month. Mm-hmm. Maybe an asset in the future at some point, but yeah, it's costing you money now. That means it's a fucking liability.
He always talks about on Twitter his like 8,000 rental income properties.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. He also wrote a book with Donald Trump though, so column A.
Yeah. When all the Trump tax stuff was going on, and he's like, of course Trump doesn't pay tax. No rich person pays tax.
Yeah.
Mate, thank you so much for your time. I've kept you for an hour and I really enjoyed the conversation, so I really appreciate it.
I'm glad. I hope I made some sense and gave a few answers, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes I can get caught on tangents, so it was a pleasure. I enjoyed chatting.
Tangents are my favorite form of conversation, so always a pleasure. Do you want to quickly give us a plug? Where can people find you? Where can people find more about your program, what it is that you do?
Yeah, cool. So Candour Coaching, Candour coaching.com is the company website. If you are looking for a course to help you find purpose and create some goals, 8weeklifehack.com is kind of the one that I've created that is a first port of call for that foundation scenario.
Perfect. And there's 50% off for listeners. Is that right?
Hey, if they say they heard it here, I'll give it to you for free. I don't even care.
I'm just messing with you. Mate, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers, Ben.